The last part of your documentation is the references page. The references page should look something like this. It will continue the pagination from your paper. So this would have been like the last page of the paper was page 6. You'll start at the top of a new page if you need to put in a page break, so you start at the very top of the next page. And also remember that when you are assigned, let's say you're assigned a 5-page paper, don't forget that your first page, the title page, doesn't count as one of those pages. And the references pages don't count as those pages either. When a faculty member assigns you a 5-page paper, they mean 5 pages of text. Okay, so your references page. At the very top should be the word references in bold. Your references, as you see, are in alphabetical order. Some other ways of doing references, we'll do them in the order in which they're listed in your paper, but APA does it in alphabetical order the same way that MLA does. Okay, also if you notice, the first line of each entry is aligned to the left, and every subsequent line of that entry is indented 1 tab. There's a really easy way to do this. You don't have to hit return here, hit enter, and then tab it in. All you do is you put your references in, and then you highlight all of them, and then you will go and under paragraph, you'll make these into hanging indents. And so that is the easiest way to do this, is to use the hanging indent function that Microsoft Word has, because that's what this is the hanging indent. Okay, so every different type of source has a little bit different of a layout for the reference entries. Now all the reference entries have very similar components. It'll always starts with the author, then the date, then it's going to be the title of the item, of the source. So if it was an article, it's the title of the article. If it's a book, it's the title of the book, but it's the title of the source you're using. If that source is inside another source, so let's say it's a journal article, the next thing would be what they call the container. So if the source is inside a larger container, let's say, as I said, an article inside a journal, the next part would be the container, which would be the name of the journal. It could also be, sometimes there are books that have, the different chapters are written by different authors, so it's, or like an anthology. And so it could be the chapter is your source, what you're using, but the container is the book. So the next part would be, so you'd have the name of the chapter, and then you'd have the title of the book. After that is going to be the publication information. Now, when you are, if it is inside a larger piece, so we're going to take a quick look at this one here. So this is an article inside Applied Economics. Applied Economics is the journal. Then you're going to give information about where inside this container, the journal, that it can be found. So this is going to be the volume, the issue, and the page numbers. It's going to be similar if you have a chapter inside a book. If you have a chapter inside a book, there's not going to be a volume or an issue number. There's going to be the title of the book, and then again the page range, what page numbers are that chapter. So that's kind of a really good idea to think about, like, how do I set it up? Author, date, source, container if there is one, where to find it in the container if it's inside a container, and the publisher. So that would be like Routledge is the publisher of this book. Also, if it's like the idea, like, where do you find it? So this can also happen here with a website or a DOI, and I'm going to talk about both of those. Just kind of walk you through what these different reference entries are. So this first reference entry is a website. Actually, I should say it's a page on a website. Technically, it's a PDF that's on a website, but you're going to treat this, because you're on a website, it's a specific page on this website, you're going to treat it like a page on a website. And so that is actually in the new 7th edition of APA. They have it very clear how they want you to put this together, how they want you to put an entry together for that. And what you do is you start with the author. Well, if there's not a specific person or people who are the authors of it. Sometimes it will be an organizational author. So the author of this web page is the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Is an organizational author, and that's okay. So this is where you put in the author section, and then this is the year that it came out, the year they published it. The next thing is going to be the title of the web page, which is the National Diabetes Statistics Report. If you notice, it is italicized. What gets italicized and what does not get italicized is going to vary from source to source, like the type of source to the type of source. For a web page, they want this italicized. And then there's a period after it. There's always a period at the end of each item in the reference entry. Now, normally you would also right here after the title of the web page, you would give the website that it's from. Now, and I'll show you, there should be here it is. Here's a web site or a web page, and this is the website that it's from. So they want also the website. Unless, so there's always these things that I like to call a platypus. So unless you, unless the website is also the organizational author. So they've figured you don't need to repeat yourself. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, that's also the name of the website. So you don't need to put it in there twice. And then you just put in the URL, and you do leave in the hyperlink. This is something that's new in the 7th edition of APA. It used to say retrieved from, and then you'd have the link, the URL. And now it's just, you just put in the URL, you leave in the hyperlink, and it's just like this. So this is what a website entry would look like. Actually, I'm sorry, a web page on a website would look like if the author is the same as the name of the website. Okay, the next one. This is a very standard journal article. So this is a journal from an article from a scholarly journal. First, you're going to have the authors. Now, if you notice, there's more than one author. So you give the last name, comma, and then the initials with periods after it. You use the ampersand sign. And then, again, this is the last name of the next author, comma, and their initial. Then the year. Notice there's a period here because each item has a period after it. The next thing is going to be the title of the journal article. Please note what is capitalized and what is not. This is called sentence case capitalizing, which means it's just like a sentence. You would only capitalize the beginning of it, the first letter of the first word, and the only other things that would be capitalized inside of it would be proper nouns. Now, the one thing that's a little different than what normal sentences would have is if there is a colon. The colon in a title is saying there's basically two parts to the title. So the second part of the title comes after the colon, and you will capitalize the first letter of the first word after the colon. And that's how you capitalize the title of an article. And then the title of the journal itself is going to have what they call title case, which means the first letter of every word is capitalized unless it is a conjunction, so and, so, but, or if it is a preposition to, for, something like that, unless it's a longer word that is the preposition. So this is in title case, and it's also italicized. There's a comma after the title, and then this number here, 47, is the volume. When you are looking at journals, most often there is both a volume and an issue number. Sometimes there's only the volume and not an issue, but normally there's both. If you notice, the volume number is italicized. The issue number is in parentheses right next to it, and there's no space here. And then there's a comma, and then this is the page range. You don't have to put P or PP for multiple pages. You just put the page range and a period. And then this is the DOI. You see here where it says DOI? A DOI is a digital object identifier. That's what it stands for. And they have now standardized how digital object identifiers should be referenced. It used to be you could put the letters DOI with a colon, and then you put, when the DOI is this alphanumeric, and here this is all numeric, but sometimes there are letters in it as well, but it's this alphanumeric string, which is very similar to like a URL, and you used to be able to put DOI and put this alphanumeric string. However, now the DOIs are hyperlinks. So even if yours is not, like let's say you have a journal and it's not presented as a hyperlink, you are supposed to put it into hyperlink formatting. So it should always start with HTTPS, a colon, 2 backslashes, doi.org, /, and then you will put in the alphanumeric code or string that is the actual digital object identifier. This is the digital object identifier. And so you're to put it in as a URL. It should look like this. Of course, the actual alphanumeric string will be different. And you leave it as a hyperlink. The next one is also a article in a journal. As you can see, this journal, though, is an online journal. And the article does not have a DOI associated with it. Now, a lot of online journals do have a DOI associated with the article. If there is a DOI associated with an article, even if there's a DOI associated with a book, you always give the DOI. However, if there is not a DOI associated with the article and it is from a website, right? It is from an online journal. Then what you're going to do is you're going to do the same thing. You're going to put the authors, you're going to put the date, you're going to put the title of the article in sentence case, except for, right, that's sort of the little exception after the colon. And then you're going to give the title of the article of the journal in title case, italicized. Here is the volume is 29. There was no issue number, so you just skip it. And then the page numbers, because they actually gave page numbers for it, even though it was on a website, because there's also some printed versions, but this is where it's from. And then this is the URL of this article. So it is when you are on this article, what is the URL at the top of the page? When you're on the website, what is the website, the web, or the URL of this page? That's what it needs to be. It used to be that you would give, the URL of the home page of a journal, but you're not doing that now. You're giving the URL of the actual article. So this is what it looks like if you have an article that is on a web journal that does not have a DOI. And as you can say too, it does not have an issue number. The next one here is a book, and this is how a book looks. It's kind of odd because the title of a journal is done in a title case, but the title of a book is done in sentence case, which I don't quite understand, but that's how APA wants it, so that's what we're going to do. So again, author, date, title of the source. Remember that this source is a book, so unlike the article, which is not italicized, so if you notice the article is not italicized, but the journal is, the container, this is self-contained, if you can think about it that way. So it's both the source and the container all at the same time. And then all you have to have after that is the name of the publishing company. You don't have to give where it was published. You just have to give the name of the publishing company. So this is what a book entry would look like. The last entry on here is a web page, and this one has a couple things that are different with it. If you notice, it starts with the title of the web page that we're looking at. That's our source. That's because there's no author given. And if there's no author, and you don't have an organizational author like for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or maybe you'll have like Mayo Clinic sometimes just puts things out and it's done by Mayo Clinic and you could use that as an organizational author. Or maybe it's the American Heart Association could be the organizational author of something. This one doesn't have an organizational author because it's on a site called Health News. And That's not an actual organization. It's just a place to put this information out. So if there is no author and there's no way to figure out who the author might be, you're going to start in place of the author, you're going to put the title of the source. So we have the title here of this. Remember, this is a web page and web pages are italicized. There's no date given. This happens quite a bit. It used to be that people would try to figure out a date if at all possible. Look at the last time something was updated. APA is saying don't do that. If there is no date of publication given, clearly given, put no date. So that's what the N and the D stand for. So it's N period, D period, and then don't forget that there's a period after the parentheses because again, that's an item. Then this is the name of the website that this web page is on. So it's health news. It's going to be in title case. This is in sentence case. This is in title case. And then you're going to give the URL for this page. So hopefully this helps kind of give you an idea of what some different entries look like. If you are ever wondering, what if I'm missing this? What if I'm missing that? The new version, the 7th edition of APA, the manual, is a fabulous place to go. There is both a tab in it that is reference list that explains how to create the list and also reference examples. And so it tells you what the different parts are for each type of entry. It will tell you if you're missing something, what to put in place of it. So if you're missing a date, that you put in ND, and it explains all of these things. But I just wanted to give you a little bit about how to do some reference entries and for you to be able to see how they should look.